achieved.
Welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. As always, I am your host, Scott Johnson, and on this episode of the show, we're breaking down the upcoming UFC 167 event, which will take place live from Las Vegas on November 16th, and feature George St-Pierre defending his welterweight title against the number one contender, Johnny Hendricks. I'll be giving you my 5 main card predictions on this episode of the show, and as always, my preliminary predictions will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. Now, currently, I'm enduring a little bit of a slump, and to be honest with you, I had a good run, a number of months consecutively without having a below 500 event. Now I've had 3 in a row, which is definitely disappointing. But any predictor that's worth their weight will tell you they're going to go through slumps. Anybody who tells you they're not going to slump, they're not going to have a bad show here or there, they're blowing smoke up your ass, and that's the case there. Not me. I know I'm going to have my downtimes, which I'm currently enduring here. All I can do is work hard to try and get in a position to rebound. And when I rebound, so do the bet packs. And the bet packs haven't been 100% bad, especially the props have been very good of late. I've nailed some upsets here or there, but for the most part, they haven't been on par with where I like to make them. So I did give a discount last event. This event, they're back posted for $10 for UFC 167. And one thing I can tell you is looking up and down this card, as is most pay-per-views, a lot of the fight, you're more familiar with the fighters because they're more known fighters than when you get the fight nights, especially in the undercard, and it gives me a better opportunity to break those fights down and figure out who's going to win those. So it's certainly an advantage, and I feel like I'm going to be rebounding for UFC 167. I certainly like my main card fights. Predictions, and we'll get into the prelims eventually. Also, the Kamikaze Overdrive prediction tournament came to an end, and the Canadian Card, or Nick Thomas, aka Card, escaped with a slight victory over Maestro V. It was a great prediction tournament, 32 competitors. He won the whole thing. Again, keep your eye open, so congratulations to him. I'll do a little blurb on my website about him. Keep your eye open for the next episode of the show. Next episode of the tournament, so that you can get involved and take part and see if you can unseat the champion or if you can, take a run to that title. Also, Josh Harper making his predictions. I'm looking to expand my prediction panel again, so I've got a couple people in the works. So if you think you are a top-level predictor who could write up predictions for my website, please message me at kamikazeoverdrive@live.ca. That's all for me for now. We've got 5 fights, and let's get into the first one. We kick things off in the UFC's flyweight division. The number 7 ranked Timothy Elliot, 10-3-1, on a rise up the ranks, takes on relative newcomer Ali Bagautinov, who's 11-2-0 from Russia. He debuted with a win in his last fight. He's looking to make some noise here. As I said, Elliot has been winning his fights of late with pace and aggression, and he uses his length very well. He's going to have a 3-inch height advantage over Bagautinov. Not really no reach advantage, to tell you, despite being a significantly taller fighter. But like I said, his pace. He has a work rate. He lands 5.13 strikes landed per minute. Against Ali Bagautinov, he landed 116 significant strikes, and he just kept coming at him and just overwhelms guys with that pace he likes to keep. And we also, throws some awkward, unorthodox attacks, which really throws fighters off. And he mixes up his grappling while moving in for clinch positions and takedowns, and really does a nice job with that. Now, Bagautinov, he's a heavily decorated Sambo fighter, very good there. Good takedowns and throws. His takedown defense will be tested in this fight. When he gets on top, excellent top control, solid ground and pound, and he will threaten with submissions as well. Now, he had some trouble with Marcos Vinicius in his last fight in his debut, and I think the size of Vinicius played an issue there, but he eventually got out of those positions and got to work. He has heavy hands, but he stopped Marcos with a big shot and eventually put him away on the mat. He throws a lot of hooks when he's attacking, and he throws them with power, but he could be in tough to land unless he can close the distance against Elliot, because although Elliot doesn't have a reach advantage, he still has that height advantage, and he does a lot of movement, which is very well, and that's what he needs to do, is use a lot of movement and angles in this fight. Avoid moving directly backwards, because that's going to allow Bagautinov to chase him down with those hooks, get inside, maybe change levels, and go for a takedown as well. Ali, he's the shorter fighter, but this also could help him in the clinch, establishing underhooks, controlling the position, and drop changing levels, which a lot of people don't take into account when you look at these shorter guys. Now, Elliot, he's been big brothering opponents, and that's a big thing for him. He was able to take down the bigger Jerry Papazian as well, so he's very effective at what he does. He's got that good pace, and so far he has a very strong chin. We've seen him take some shots from guys and just keeps coming forward. But again, he does not want to test that here against Bagautinov. I favor Timothy Elliott. He's got the experience, and I think his pace makes a big difference. So my prediction is Timothy Elliott to defeat Ali Bagautinov, and I'll take Elliott by decision. Up next, we move to the UFC's 170-pound division as former title challenger Josh Koscheck, 19-7-0, battles former Strikeforce title challenger Tyron, the Chosen One, Woodley, 11-2-0. Now, Koss, he's 35 years of age. He's lost 2 fights in a row. He's on a 10-month layoff. This is a must-win for a fighter who desperately needs and wants to remain relevant in the division. He has to win this fight. What we have here is a wrestler versus a wrestler. We also have a veteran fighter in Koscheck against a relatively young fighter in Woodley who's still working to round out his game and developing those skills, but Koss has been around for a significantly long time. Both guys are NCAA Division I wrestlers. Statistically, Koss, 2.65 takedowns at 53%. Woodley's number is just slightly lower at 2.18 takedowns at 42%. Takedown defense, again, favoring Koscheck, 53% to 42% for Woodley. On the mat, both guys have 5 submission wins each. Woodley is a BJJ purple belt. Well, Koscheck is a guerrilla jiu-jitsu black belt as well. So both have submission capabilities, even though we really don't associate that with either of these fighters. Moreover, they're both known for their smothering top game. It's not the most exciting, but they're very effective. We've seen Woodley and Koscheck put guys on the mat, keep them there, and grind out fights. We saw Woodley do that against Jordan Meehan and against Paul Daly. Koscheck did that against Paul Daly as well. Now, one thing's for sure, the wrestling could cancel each other out, as we see a lot of times two good wrestlers, it turns into a kickboxing matchup, but we've actually seen Koscheck go after good wrestlers with his wrestling and try and out-deal them. We saw, multiple TDAs against Mike Pierce and Johnny Hendricks. That was really a back and forth, both close fights, both ended in split decisions, one for Koss, one against him. So I think he's potentially going to consider looking for wrestling to work his wrestling against Woodley. Now, Woodley, he was able to fend off the TDAs against Jake Shields, 18 for 18. That's very impressive. But at the same time, he couldn't gain a position and gave out the position. That's what cost him in that fight. Is he kept pinned on the cage, couldn't circle away and get some striking off against a fairly weak striker in Shields. Now, both guys on the feet, they both have power, but neither are known for their technical striking. We saw Koss, and additionally on top of that, both their chins are a little bit questionable. Koscheck got knocked out by Paul Tiago and Robbie Lawler. We saw Woodley get knocked out by Nate Marquardt. So if either man who has big power lands on the other flush, it could be lights out. And that's something to take into consideration here. The major differences in this fight, as many similarities as there are, Koss has excellent cardio. He is the older fighter, but I think he has a cardio advantage. He's shown many times he can go a full 3 rounds. Well, Woodley's cardio, it's looked better of late, but it's not that great. He's slowed down in fights, early in fights too. First round we're talking, especially when the pace is pushed, and that's what Koscheck's going to look to do. Overall, too, Woodley's never faced a strong wrestler or grappler other than Jake Shields, and as I said, he struggled to separate in that fight versus Koss. Has lots of experience with wrestlers, guys like Johnny Hendricks, Mike Pierce, George St-Pierre, Anthony Johnson, Matt Hughes, and the list goes on and on. So he has a lot of experience in fights like this. Now, Koss, that eye issue that he had from the GSP Jab Fest when he fought for the title in that fight, seems to show up if he gets some damage done in that area of his face. And if Woodley can do it, it really should throw Koscheck off and give him an advantage. But again, Woodley doesn't have that technical striking base to exploit that with a solid jab. So we'll see how that plays out. Neither guy's done a lot of work off their backs. The top position, whoever gains top position more regularly is going to win this fight. I think Koss's speed, cardio, and experience is going to play a major difference in this fight. Look for that explosive double leg to put Woodley on his back, at least put him into the cage, control the position. I think it'll be close early, but as the fight progresses, Josh Koscheck will pull away. So my prediction is Josh Koscheck to defeat Tyron Woodley by decision. We remain in the welterweight division. It's the number 3 ranked welterweight in the UFC, Rory Aries MacDonald, 15-1-0, battles the number 10 ranked welterweight, Ruthless Robbie Lawler, 21-9-0 with 1 no contest. This is a fight a lot of people are looking forward to. Rory's coming off a very poor but effective performance against Jake Ellenberger, while Lawler has re-debuted in the UFC with 2 straight knockouts, including over the aforementioned Josh Koscheck, and really rejuvenated his career since cutting back down from 185. And Robbie, he has serious knockout power. 18 of his 21 wins have come by knockout. That's very impressive, especially considering he was fighting at 185 for a number of those knockouts, so against bigger men. One thing with his statistically for Lawler, he averages 2.5 strikes landed per minute versus 2.6 absorbed. So he'll take a punch to land a punch, and his attitude is the power differential is going to favor him, and that's where he makes up the difference and does the most damage. Unfortunately for Lawler, he's 3-8 in his career in fights that he cannot score the knockout in. So it's imperative that he gets, hurts the guy, puts him away in those situations. Other than that, he really struggles in those other non-knockout situations. Now, looking at the Canadian, 4.5 strikes landed per minute for MacDonald, and strikes absorbed 2.06, so more than double output versus input as far as he's taking, and that's huge against a fighter like Robbie Lawler who needs those shots to land and to score the knockout. We saw Rory shut down Ellenberger's attack with that long-ranging jab, kept him from getting inside range. He did it against BJ Penn as well, which was quite impressive. Now, Robbie is used to fighting bigger men at middleweight, but Rory's still going to have a reach advantage, and that's going to show up in this fight. For Robbie, he tends to wing big punches looking for the knockout, but he's far more effective when he's technical. But it's going to be hard against a guy who's so technically sound like Rory MacDonald for Robbie to find that technical edge as opposed to trying to brawl and get in and land that big knockout blow. And on the mat, Rory's a BJJ black belt, 2.98 takedowns at 56%. We saw him dominate guys like Che Mills and Nate Diaz on the mat, so he's more than capable of doing that as well. Now, Robbie has a wrestling background, 63% takedown defense, which is very solid, but he has been controlled on the mat as well by good grapplers, guys like Tim Kennedy and Jacare Souza, both at middleweight, and he's been submitted 5 times overall in his career, so that's a number to keep in consideration. MacDonald, he has strong takedowns, and he does a nice job with mixing up his attacks, striking, dropping for a takedown, looking to keep guys confused and off pace while he's trying to work his attack. Now, one thing with MacDonald coming out of TriStar and Faraz Zahabi, they're always looking to exploit their opponent's weaknesses. Most people are, but I think these guys do an excellent job of it. And I think that's what he's going to look to do against Robbie. Rory has been knocked out once, was KO'd by Condit, and his chin is still a little bit untested. We'll see if Robbie can get in and do some damage and see if we can find out how good Rory MacDonald's chin really is when he takes a big shot from a big hitter. Now, Robbie, for me, Lawler has to land that big bomb to score the KO. And he needs to use movement to get inside and do that, but he has to score a KO for him to win this fight. I can't see him outpointing Rory, and for Rory, he can outpoint Robbie with technical striking. He could KO him with the volume of strikes he puts on, like Nick Diaz did to Robbie Lawler back in the day. He could ground him with a solid wrestling attack, or he could submit him or ground and pound him in that position. He has many more avenues to win this fight, and I think that's what comes here. I'm going to take Rory MacDonald to defeat Robbie Lawler. It's either going to be with wrestling or a technical striking advantage. I'll take Rory MacDonald over Lawler by decision. We now move to the co-main event of the evening in the UFC's light heavyweight division. I just realized they're taking decisions all the way through. We'll see if we can change that here in these next 2 fights. We have the number 4 ranked Rashad Evans, 23-3-1, with that skewed record based on the tough fights being included by the UFC, against former middleweight and light heavyweight title challenger and number 7 ranked Chael Sonnen, 29-13-1. Now, both guys are coming off wins, but are in a state of flux at light heavyweight, considering they both lost to the champion and really didn't show much of a threat against Johnny Jones. Now, Sonnen doesn't get a lot of respect fighting at light heavyweight, even though he was a dominant middleweight. He doesn't get a lot of respect. But you look at overall in his career, his last 9 fights, he's been beaten 3 times, twice by Anderson Silva, once by John Jones, and he's got some wins over big names in that stretch. So the guy deserves that respect that he's not getting. I think he's slowly getting it. But we'll see how this fight plays out and see if that adds to it. Now, Sonnen actually is going to be the bigger man, and I think he's benefiting from not cutting to 185 pounds where he was being drained significantly. He's much more comfortable at 205. Now, we have 2 wrestlers here which could lead to a striking battle, but I'm not 100% sure on that, just like with the Koscheck Woodley fight. Statistically, Chael, 3.6 takedowns at 60% versus Rashad, 3.34 takedowns at 48%, and their takedown defenses are both in the high 60% range. I think Chael has a slightly better number. We did see Chael get taken down by Michael Bisping once and a couple of times by John Jones. Well, Rashad Evans was taken down by Jones, Davis, and Tito Ortiz took him down too, and that's something to keep into consideration looking into this fight. Now, Rashad should have a speed advantage. He's simply the faster fighter, move and shoot from the outside, and that's the technique he likes to use. For Chael, he has that power double, likes to blast right through his opponents, and he'll also work the clinch along the cage, that Greco-Roman wrestling background, and change levels for a takedown. He's very effective in this technique. Now, Chael has an improving submission game, and that's something to keep in mind too, coming off that submission win over Shogun, who he also tapped out Brian Stann not that long ago. Now, Evans, he hasn't shown a lot of submission capabilities, but he is a BJJ black belt, and Chael has 8 submission defeats, which is something to keep in mind if maybe if Evans gets in a position to submit him or at least attempt one. Now, neither guy's overly comfortable off their back, so again, just like Koss and Woodley, the advantage goes to whoever can establish top control in a matchup like this. That's going to go a long way. On the feet, Evans, again, is fast. He has decent hands, has some power, but he appeared hesitant against Nogueira. There are some chin issues with Rashad, but for me, Chael, he doesn't have that striking power to exploit Rashad's chin issues that have cost him in the past, getting knocked out by Machida, I believe he was hurt by Rampage and by Thiago Silva, if I remember correctly. Now, Sonnen, underrated striking, yes, nothing flashy. He likes to work the kicks, punches, looking to close that distance and bust his opponent up along the cage, which he's very effective at, and that can often lead to his grappling attack. Both guys have solid cardio and keep pushing, which is something to keep in mind as well. Overall, Chael Sonnen 17-1 in fights that go the distance. He has been knocked out 4 times, 2 early in his career, and then the recent ones against John Jones and Anderson Silva. Can Evans do it? We really haven't seen that knockout power from Evans. He did stop Tito Ortiz, and he KO'd Chuck Liddell. But guys at the end of their career is not nearly as impressive as knocking out like a bigger name fighter, like if you were to knock out Lyoto Machida. Now, Rashad took a split decision over Dan Henderson, but Henderson in that fight kept coming forward and was very active and pressured Rashad and won some points with the judges. If he could have done some more damage, he might have been able to steal that fight. Now, Rashad, he's successful when his opponent stands and exchanges with him. That's not going to happen with Chael Sonnen. Sonnen's going to pressure him, move forward, and be aggressive, and really look to put his back against the cage and on the mat. That's something I'm looking forward to seeing. I expect Chael to press that action. Tito Ortiz was very successful against Rashad when he wanted to take him down, put him into the cage, and really grind it into him. He just took some shots and eventually broke. and that's something I think Chael, being a little bit younger than Tito at a different stage in his career, will be more effective at it. And I'm pulling the upset here. I've got Chael Sonnen to defeat Rashad Evans. I'll take Chael by decision. We head now to the main event of the evening in the UFC's welterweight division as the title is on the line. As one of the pound-for-pound greatest of all time steps back inside the octagon, the welterweight champion George "Rush" St-Pierre, 24-2-0, battles the number 1 ranked contender, 15-1-0 Johnny Big Rig Hendricks. And just on a side note, that one loss against Rick Story, a loss that I did predict way back in the day. Now we have Hendricks' power, that's the first question, against GSP's chin. We've seen Hendricks KO guys Martin Kampmann, John Fitch, TJ Wahlberger, Charlie Brenneman, Amir Sadallah. He has 8 knockouts overall. The guy has brutal one-punch knockout power, and like I said, he only needs that one shot to put it away, and he can do it with either hand. All he has to do is land once, and he's got a guy in trouble, or if they're not out already. Now GSP, he was KO'd by Matt Serra. We saw him get dropped by a head kick from Carlos Condit. And the big question is, if he gets tagged even with a partially, connecting shot against Hendricks, will he quit? Will he fold up? Or if he gets hit with that big shot, is he just going to go right out and that'll be the end of the fight? Major questions. The other big question is, can Johnny Hendricks even get in range to land one of those big shots? GSP's going to have a 7-inch reach advantage. We saw him against Koscheck, who is also known as a wrestler with a big explosive striking power. We saw him use that heavy jabbing attack to keep Koscheck on the outside. I expect something similar here against Johnny Hendricks. He kept him out of range. Koscheck never really got things going, and that was a major reason Koscheck was never in that fight. Now you look at the overall situation for George as far as striking statistics. 1.23 strikes absorbed per minute. He really limits his opponents versus 3.75 strikes landed per minute. He puts a ton of volume on his opponents compared to what they're able to land. For Johnny, both numbers are just over 3. He's one of those guys, he's going to get in there, he's going to throw shots, and against that power equation, I hit harder, so you can land 3 and I'll land 3, and we'll see who's still standing when that situation is over. One thing with Hendricks, though, he's very fast and capable of closing the distance. Actually, both guys are. Let's look at Hendricks. Let's look at GSP first. He can close that distance very quickly, and that throws a lot of guys off. That Superman punch, a lot of variety of kicks. Get in with that jab. He's very good at closing that distance and very comfortable with it. Hendricks, he's explosive when he attacks, and he can close and land that massive hook really quickly, and it catches a lot of people off guard. Certainly Martin Kampmann and John Fitch as well. But for me, he gets a little bit one-dimensional with his strikes when he's looking for that big knockout blow, and he gets a little too focused on head hunting. He's going to need to find a way to get inside and land, and maybe he only needs one, but the question is, will he get in range to do one before George St-Pierre starts to wear him down? The other question is, with Johnny Hendricks, will he be able to keep the fight standing? As GSP, we know he likes to try and out-wrestle wrestlers. We know against Thiago Alves, when Alves was knocking out everybody, GSP looked at him and said, I'm going to take him down, grind him out, put pressure on him, try and get that blood flow to the arms, take away that ability to score knockouts, and that's something I expected him to consider here as well. GSP, 4.38 takedowns at 76%, which is impressive, and he's done it against some good wrestlers. He went 4 for 9 against Koscheck, 7 for 9 against Johnny Fitch, perfect 3 for 3 in his final meeting with Matt Hughes. Now Hendricks, he's been focusing a lot on the striking, but the guy is a top-level wrestler, highly decorated NCAA Division I wrestler, very good on the mat. 5.52 takedowns at 50%, and we've seen him dominate some fights with takedowns. He landed 12 against Carlos Condit. In his lone loss, he did land 6 takedowns against Rick Story, so interesting there that he ended up losing that fight. But he hasn't done anything really massive in recent memory, which leads me to believe he's focusing a little bit too much on his striking and avoiding, and he's not being as diverse as he possibly could be. The Condit fight, maybe he changed his approach a little bit, but still, I like to see him mix it up just a little bit better. Takedown defense, 63% for Hendricks. He was taken down by Koscheck and Story and Pierce and Charlie Brenneman, so it's not like he has a stone wall of takedown defense like a guy like Leites and Tebow has. Now GSP, 86% takedown defense, very hard to take down. He had to, he's not often taken off his feet. Most don't even bother with it. Koscheck did land 2 takedowns over 2 fights, but GSP's only been taken down those twice in his last 13 bouts, so that's something to keep in mind if Hendricks looks to change gears and look for a takedown. Either the wrestling's going to cancel each other out, or I think GSP is more likely to score a takedown and control Hendricks off his back. And I thought Hendricks had some trouble keeping Rick Story off him. Again, that was a little while ago, but still, that tells me that if a wrestler really pushes against Hendricks, same thing the way Koscheck did, it could create some difficulties for Johnny. Now, Hendricks has never gone 5 rounds. Well, GSP, he didn't look great against Nick Diaz, but he is capable of going the 5 rounds and gutted it out. He should have a little bit of a cardio advantage along with the experience advantage. For me, GSP's faster, he's bigger, he's more technical. He'll keep Hendricks out of range and then mix it up and put the wrestler on his back for this fight. Hendricks has power, he has a puncher's chance, maybe a little bit better because all he needs is that one shot, and it's nighty-night. But my prediction is George St-Pierre to defeat Johnny Hendricks and retain his title. I'll take George by decision. So those are my 5 main card predictions for UFC 167. All my preliminary picks will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. Please consider buying my bet packs. I'm certainly looking for a turnaround here. I feel good about my main card predictions. I feel good about my preliminary predictions. And I'm looking forward to this event. It should be a good one. We have a couple weeks off now. This is the third of 3 events in about a week and a half, which is a very busy time for a guy like me who's putting this stuff together. Plus with all the other non-related MMA stuff I'm doing as well. I appreciate all of my listeners. You know who you are, especially the ones who supported me all the way along. I thank you very much. And as always, Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. I'll see you back here next time.